TransAsia Airways Flight 235, a tragic miscalculation, 2015. On February 4, 2015, TransAsia Airways Flight 235, an ATR 7600 turboprop aircraft, crashed into the Keelung River in Taipei, Taiwan, shortly after takeoff. The accident was the result of a series of critical errors, primarily stemming from pilot misjudgment, leading to the deaths of 43 people. The incident was captured in shocking footage by a dashboard camera, showing the aircraft banking steeply before plunging into the river. This tragedy raised serious concerns about pilot training and operational safety in the aviation industry. Background of the flight: TransAsia Airways Flight 235 was a scheduled domestic flight from Taipei Songshan Airport, TSA, to Kinmen Airport, KNH, an outlying island near mainland China. The aircraft, an ATR 72600, registered as B22816, was relatively new, having been delivered to TransAsia Airways in April 2014. On the day of the accident, the flight carried 53 passengers and 5 crew members, including 2 experienced pilots. Captain Liao Jianzong. Over 4,900 flight hours, including 3,151 hours on ATR aircraft. However, he had failed simulator checks twice before. First Officer Liu Zizong had 6,922 hours of experience, but was less familiar with the ATR 72600. Third crew member, a flight instructor seated in the jump seat. The weather was clear, and there were no adverse conditions that would have contributed to the accident. The flight and the critical error at 10:52 a.m. local time. Flight 235 took off from Taipei Songshan Airport's runway 10. Just 37 seconds after liftoff, the aircraft climbed to about 1,200 feet, 370 meters, when the right engine, engine No. 2, experienced an issue. The aircraft's auto-feather system reduced the power output of the malfunctioning engine, a standard safety feature designed to prevent excessive drag. However, instead of following standard engine failure procedures, Captain Liao mistakenly shut down the left engine, engine No. 1, which was fully operational. This left the aircraft without any working engines, an irreversible error. Cockpit voice recorder, CVR. Transcript excerpts: 10:52:38 engine No. 2 experiences a flameout warning. 10:52:43, Captain Liao says, "I've pulled back the wrong throttle." 10:53:6. First officer tries to restart engine No. 1, but the aircraft is losing altitude rapidly. 10:53:14. The crew makes a distress call. "Mayday, Mayday, engine flameout." 10:53. The aircraft stalls, the stick shaker activates, and the plane begins an uncontrolled descent. As the plane plummeted, the pilots struggled to restart engine No. 1, but it was too late. The crash: Keelung River impact. At 10:53:34 a.m., just 1 minute and 40 seconds after takeoff, Flight 235 struck a taxi bridge with its left wing, shearing off part of the structure and damaging a passing taxi. The aircraft then flipped, and plunged nose first into the Keelung River. The entire sequence was caught on a dashcam from a nearby vehicle, showing the plane banking sharply to the left before impact. Crash details: the left wing struck the bridge, causing the plane to veer sharply. The fuselage hit the water, breaking apart into several sections. The plane sank partially in the shallow river, leaving portions of the fuselage visible. Rescue operation and survivors. The crash occurred in broad daylight in an urban area, allowing for a rapid emergency response. Local rescue teams, military personnel, and divers rushed to the scene. Survivors were seen climbing out of the fuselage as first responders arrived. Casualties and survivors: 43 fatalities, including both pilots. 15 survivors, many sustaining serious injuries. 5 people on the ground were injured, including the taxi driver struck by the wing. Several passengers survived because they were seated near emergency exits and were able to escape the wreckage before it fully submerged. Investigation and findings. The Aviation Safety Council, ASC of Taiwan, launched a full investigation, assisted by the French BEA, Bureau of Inquiry and Analysis for Civil Aviation Safety, and ATR, the aircraft's manufacturer. Key findings. Pilot error. The pilots incorrectly shut down the wrong engine, leading to complete loss of power. Captain Liao had failed simulator tests twice for engine failure procedures, indicating poor training and decision-making under stress. Lack of crew coordination. The first officer did not challenge the captain's mistake in time. The flight instructor in the jump seat also failed to intervene. Training deficiencies. The airline's pilot training program was found to be inadequate. Pilots lacked proper experience on the ATR 72600, a newer version of the ATR series. Mechanical issues. The No-2 engine did experience an anomaly, but it was not a complete failure. The aircraft could have flown safely on one engine if the correct procedures had been followed. Aftermath and safety improvements impact on TransAsia Airways. This was the second fatal crash involving TransAsia Airways in less than a year. Following the accident, TransAsia Airways faced severe financial and regulatory pressure. In 2016, the airline ceased operations permanently due to declining passenger trust. Regulatory changes. Stricter pilot training. Taiwan's Civil Aeronautics Administration, CAA, mandated more rigorous engine failure training. Re-evaluation of pilots. All ATR pilots in Taiwan were retested on emergency procedures, with some failing recertification. Operational improvements. Airlines worldwide reinforced crew resource management, CRM, training, to prevent similar cockpit miscommunications. Lessons learned. Engine failures alone do not necessarily cause crashes. Pilot decisions are critical. Cockpit resource management must improve to ensure correct cross-checking during emergencies. Simulator training must emphasize realistic emergency scenarios to prepare pilots for high-pressure situations. Critical pilot error. The fatal mistake that doomed Flight 235. The crash of TransAsia Airways Flight 235 was not just a result of an engine failure. It was primarily caused by a devastating pilot error that sealed the fate of the aircraft and its occupants. The initial problem, engine No-2 failure. Shortly after takeoff from Taipei Songshan Airport at an altitude of about 1,200 feet, a failure occurred in engine No-2, the right engine. The aircraft's sensors automatically detected an issue and alerted the pilots with an engine flameout warning. At this moment, the ATR 7600 was still capable of flying safely with its remaining engine, if handled correctly. The fatal decision, shutting down the wrong engine. Instead of carefully diagnosing the issue, the captain mistakenly reduced power to the functioning engine No-1 left engine. In the confusion and urgency of the moment, he fully shut down the only operational engine, effectively leaving the aircraft with zero thrust. The following factors contributed to this critical misjudgment. Stress and confusion. The sudden warning caused immediate pressure, leading the captain to react without fully verifying which engine had failed. Lack of situational awareness. The flight crew misinterpreted the engine performance data, failing to recognize that engine No-1 was still functioning properly. Or cockpit coordination. The first officer did not intervene in time to correct the captain's error, resulting in a rapid loss of power. The irreversible consequences. Aircraft enters a stall with both engines now devoid of thrust. The aircraft began to lose airspeed rapidly. The pilots attempted to restart the engines, but by the time they realized the mistake, it was too late. The aircraft had already entered an aerodynamic stall. The ATR 72600 banked sharply to the left, its nose dropping as the pilot struggled to regain control. The flight crew made a desperate Mayday call. "Mayday, Mayday, engine flameout!" However, with no thrust and insufficient altitude to recover from the stall, the aircraft continued its descent. In the final moments, just 37 seconds after shutting down the wrong engine, the ATR 72600 clipped the edge of an elevated highway bridge, striking a yellow taxi before plunging into the Keelung River. This catastrophic mistake transformed what could have been a manageable single-engine landing into one of Taiwan's deadliest aviation disasters. The crash claimed 43 lives, including the pilots, passengers and crew members. Lessons learned. The investigation into Flight 235's crash led to major safety recommendations for pilot training and cockpit procedures. Enhanced Crew Resource Management, PRM. Pilots must work together to verify and confirm critical decisions before acting. Engine Failure Recognition Training. Airlines now emphasize better training on how to correctly identify which engine has failed. Automatic system improvements. Some aircraft now have safeguards to prevent accidental engine shutdowns in an emergency, the tragedy of TransAsia Airways Flight 235 serves as a harrowing reminder of how a single moment of misjudgment in the cockpit can determine the fate of an entire flight. Conclusion: the crash of TransAsia Airways Flight 235 was one of the most preventable aviation disasters in recent history. The combination of pilot misjudgment, inadequate training, and poor situational awareness led to an unnecessary tragedy. The accident serves as a critical case study for airlines and regulators, highlighting the vital importance of proper pilot training and decision-making in crisis situations. Although TransAsia Airways no longer exists, the legacy of Flight 235 lives on in improved safety protocols and stricter aviation training worldwide.